Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this very special edition of Treaty Talk. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star in association with Noah's Menswear. Another joyous occasion, Matt. Four in a row. This Limerick team continues to deliver when the chips are down, they get going. And what a second half performance in Croke Park we had. We'll have a very special guest joining us after the introduction. So stay tuned as we look back on yet another All Ireland final win for Limerick.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the left brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Now, for anyone watching, they'll notice that we're missing a person, but we are joined by former Limerick hurler Donie Ryan to look back in the game. Matt will be with us again in a minute, Donie. We've had awful problems, but thank you very much for coming on. How are you keeping?
No bother, Jack. Sure, if you weren't good this week, Jack, sure, you might as well go away and get yourself checked out.
Yeah,
Fantastic times for Limerick. They're fantastic for everyone.
Oh, what can you say about this team that hasn't been said already?
No, there isn't really much I can add to it, Jack. That's going to make this any better for anybody out there. Look, we went through a very long period where we all done our suffering together, and we started in 2018 and we started winning, and sure, they're joyous times. Anything that's happening to us at the moment is a bit surreal, to be honest. And the good news for the rest of the country is this story ain't finished just yet.
Yeah, like that's kind of the thing they're getting out of it, because you could kind of say in 2022 that they were pushed very far by Clare twice, Galway the same, Kilkenny in the final. But this year, although they were beaten by Clare and only won by a point, 2 9-point victories in Croke Park, you can say they're only kind of hitting their groove, and you've Cathal O'Neill is coming into the equation now, Dave Reedy, these boys, Aaron Costello made his debut, doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
Not a hope, Jack. You go back to the Munster Championship, we were at all the matches there, you go back and look at them all, they were all close matches. Munster champions in 2023 were Limerick, with a score difference of +2. So the four teams in Munster, no doubt, are getting closer to them. The only thing is, our questions would be, do John, Paul and the backroom team, do they time it in such a run that they're more than hopeful they come out of Munster? Because when this team hits Croke Park, it just seems to go to a different level. The brand of hurling they play suits Croke Park, but I'm not really sure what the other teams in Galway and Kilkenny expected when they met Limerick and Croke Park. But the standard, the level that this John Kiely can get this team to go to, is going to be very, very difficult for anyone to come close to us even at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose it's natural that we're talking about a 5 in a row already, but we'll focus on the 4 for the time being, and the game itself, because in the first half, I suppose, what did you make of the first half? Because Kilkenny, it was probably reminiscent of the Kilkenny team that you played, just absolutely ferocious they were.
Well, it was very interesting actually, because I was in the lower hog and I was down near the front. I was only about 10 or 12 rows back, so I was really close to the action. Now, Jack, the physicality and the belts that went in fairness to Kilkenny, in fairness to them, as per usual in their tradition, they came with all guns blazing. They hit hard, they tackled ferociously, they won a lot of breaking ball, but Limerick were just soaking it up. You could see them. Limerick were soaking them up. The only thing I'll say about the first half is when Kilkenny went short with the puck outs, they got some bit of reward. But for some reason, when Limerick pushed up and Kilkenny had to go long for their 4 or 5 or 6 puck outs, Jesus, Jack, the Limerick half backline, they ate them up. I was right down here in front of Kyle Hayes now. And when the Limerick boys were coming out of the fence, the Kilkenny boys were rattling them, but they weren't setting the Limerick boys back. It was just ferocious intensity. I was actually quite happy at halftime. I know a lot of people would say it's easy to say it now, but Kilkenny done an awful lot of the hurling and we were only 3 points down. But I felt when we came out after halftime, Jack, we all saw it yourself, sure, like it just the switch turns then, and Kilkenny all their physicality and everything is just drained, and Limerick just steamrolled them then for the last 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, you spoke about the half back line and Diarmaid Byrnes, Will Donoghue and Kyle Hayes. If you were playing against those boys, would you be putting your hand up for a puck out?
The only thing I say to you, Jack, is, and I was asked this question last week, you're talking about 5, 6 and 7 there, right? In 2007, the half back line we faced was Tommy Welsh 5, Brian Hogan 6, and JJ Delaney 7. So it's something similar. You'll be asked which one of them would you prefer to mark. 15 or 16 years later, it's Limerick has the 5, 6 and 7. So no, under no circumstances, Jack, could you put you're not going to win you're not going to catch a ball over these boys' heads. No. So whatever team is planning this morning for 2024, the puck out strategy is a huge part of taking on this Limerick team.
Yeah, and I think especially in Limerick's purple patch, I thought Diarmaid Byrnes was just phenomenal back there. He caught 2 or 3 balls. He drove one over from 100 yards. It's like generally Byrnes is always really good, but there's certain times lads will step up. It was Casey, it was Byrnes, it was Lynch, who would have been quietish during the year. You know, Gillane had been the man, or Hayes, that if you stop 5 or 6 these Limerick boys, the next 5 or 6 will come up and do you.
That seems to be John Kiely's greatest attribute, actually, is every day it seems to be someone different. Gillane was obviously the hot target going into the final. In fairness to you, Lawler, have to give you massive credit. He done a serious job in Gillane. It was a fair battle, the two of them. Gillane slightly edged in the last 15 minutes, but up to that, Lawler gave as good as he got. He's a fantastic fullback. But as you said about Peter Casey, he was quite all the way through the championship. But geez, the All-Ireland final. I read a stat the other day. In the 59th minute, he'd 1 point got. In the 63rd, he'd 4 points got.
Yeah.
So obviously that's 3 points in 4 minutes. Jeez, Jack, like as a corner forward and have played in corner forwards, if you got 3 balls in the match, sometimes it would be all you could get. Like this man got 3 points, and like they weren't on the 21-yard line straight in front of the goal tap overs. Like these points, every one of these points was phenomenal. And just to show the skill level, he came out in the lower Hogan in front of John Kiely, straight beside him, and put 2 of them over the bar. Fantastic scores. And then he decided he'd go to the far side. He put the 2 on the Hogan stand side over with his right hand side, and went over to the Cusick stand and put it over with his left hand side. So that's the skill level of that. Like this is from a hurling perspective, and we're all looking forward to next Sunday. There's a footballer playing with Kerry next Sunday who they're all saying is dynamite. But Limerick seem to have 4 or 5 of these Dave Clifford type equals playing that left or right doesn't make any difference what you do with them.
No, it doesn't. And I suppose Casey's purple patch came in the midst of a Limerick purple patch where they're completely on top of Kilkenny. Yep. And you would have faced that in 07 at the start. I mean, what's it like to be on the receiving end of that?
But sure, look, Jack, in fairness to everyone at the moment, the comparisons, everyone is going to throw the comparison of both teams. Kilkenny 06 to 2010 and Limerick in the modern era, right? Very difficult to compare to, but we faced it. Everything Limerick have at the moment, Kilkenny had that time. Kilkenny had class hurlers, they had big men, very physical, and they had a quality. But they had 5 or 6 players that were the best players in Ireland at the time playing in the one team. Limerick have 5 or 6 players at the moment who would be on any team in any generational type. And the rest of the boys then, the boys that get the lesser lights, that don't get the publicity, the Dan Morrisseys, Mike Casey, the fantastic year, William O'Donoghue, outstanding, like to move from centre field to centre back, but you're facing a type of player that is just a collective of powerhouse hurling. We ran into it. Now, we ran into 2 early goals, and we felt that after the 2 early goals, we came to a level with Kilkenny that we were unlucky with the 2 goals. But going back to last Sunday, Jack, Kilkenny faced something that they thought they had faced, but they hadn't seen. Like, if this match went on for another 5 or 6 minutes, Kilkenny weren't going to come back into the match. Like,
yeah. And do you think Kilkenny were naive or anything in the second half, or do you think there was just nothing they could do?
To be honest with you, Jack, I'd say the tank was empty. I'd say, to be fair to them, they threw everything. They were like, it was a box. If it was a boxing match, it would have been stopped. Like Kilkenny, in fairness to them, for the first 40, 45 minutes, they threw everything at him. But Richie Hogan came on as a sub. I remember there very near the end, and he got a ball thrown out to him. And he was blocked down, levelled, the ball taken off him. The Limerick boys trampled out over him, down the field, and we got a score. Jesus, Jack, like, you can't come from things like that. Like, you can't sustain that level of physicality. Like,
No, it was definitely ferocious the first half. And Matt, I was talking to you at half time, and you mightn't have said it, but you did seem a small bit worried. What did you make of, I suppose, the first 15 minutes after half time, where your worries put to ease then?
No, I'll tell you, you're always worried when you're behind at half time, you know, but I felt, and Donie sort of touched on it there, I thought Kilkenny burned too much energy in the first half, particularly in the first 25 minutes. And I think that became self-evident as the game went on. All right, they got the goal, they went 5 points up. But once Limerick got into the groove, and it was very, very clear after the goal that instead of Kilkenny driving on, that what it had done was provoke the response from Limerick. And once Limerick started chipping away at that 5-point lead, there was only going to be one winner. And I agree totally with Donie, because we saw last year where Kilkenny chipped away on the home straight and brought it down to 2 points. Now, I would claim that some of the Kilkenny points last year were of a Hail Mary nature, because they were sort of struck in frustration. But that was never going to happen this year. It was never going to happen. And Donie said if the game went on for 5 minutes, that Kilkenny wouldn't make any further imprint. The only one that would make a further imprint on the scoreline, as far as I'd be concerned, would be Limerick at that stage. They were literally unstoppable. Like, you know,
Yeah.
we're talking about hurling, and we've been talking about hurling all the year. But now, Jack, the narrative has changed. We're talking about absolute hurling greatness.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about a team that has raised the benchmark to a level that hasn't seen before, in terms of physicality, in terms of passion, in terms of score taking, in terms of discipline. Absolutely fantastic. And look, we've had so many narratives surrounding this Limerick team this year. You know, first of all, Limerick were unbeatable. Then when that it moved on then to Limerick's discipline, and then nitpicking with little things. I could talk about discipline and you know, infringements that were committed against Limerick and weren't highlighted during the year. But you know, now we have seen what Limerick are all about. But I don't know, Donie. Like, coming into the championship, and the interesting statistic that you put there at the start about Limerick collectively winning the Munster Championship by 2 points, and that is correct. You know, it's a fact of life. But I'm just wondering, Donie, coming into the league, coming into the championship, you had a pretty tough league campaign.
You did.
Like, Limerick played 7 games in a condensed period of time and won 6 of them to win the league.
Yes.
And going into the game against Waterford, like, Waterford had an advantage in that they had extra time to prepare. So had Clare, you know. And we had those extra games. And I thought that those extra games perhaps inhibited somewhat Limerick hitting the ground running from day one.
Matt, without a shadow of a doubt, it is. Yeah, I think looking back on it now, if you go back to the league campaign, halfway through, John Kiely played the first 2 rounds of the league. I'd say everyone in Limerick was iffy about whether we were going to go for it or not. We went up to Galway then and we turned them up in the league. I'd say it was after that match that John Kiely decided, you know what, we'll actually go for this league, right? Now, the timing wasn't ideal. We were 2 weeks out from the final. So we landed in a semi-final, and we for 40 minutes, Tipperary threw everything at you. It was a fantastic game of hurling. I'd say John was pretty pleased that night coming out of the Gaelic grounds after playing Tipperary in the league semi-final. So we went down to Cork in the league final, and we were playing Kilkenny. And obviously, as we all know, Matt, especially back through the years and everything, Kilkenny will do everything. But in the league final was very disappointing. But we'd only 2 weeks of a turnaround. So John was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. He couldn't really train him hard. He didn't really know where he was. So he landed in the Waterford match. And as you said there, Dean, Sure, Waterford were building this up from last November. John was just building away stepping stones as we went. And like Matt, there's no point in saying we were very lucky to get over the line against Waterford. We were very, very lucky. And, so, you know, the signs were kind of, I'm not really sure what it was. I'm not sure whether it wasn't you were fully at it or whether Waterford were more psyched than you were what. But John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk and all the backroom team have this knack in the last 3 or 4 years of the building stones and the building steps up along, and they come nicely. And we went in against Clare in the second round, we were turned up by a point. So the gas thing about it was, when we came to Cork inside in the Gaelic grounds, Matt, the facts of the matter are, on the Sunday morning of the Cork match, there was a possibility that Limerick could be out of the championship if results went against you. Like, they're talking, the betting today is Limerick 8-11 to win the All-Ireland final next year. The Limerick on the Sunday morning of the Cork match, Limerick were 10-1 to win the Munster Championship. Because everybody in the country, myself included, thought that Tipperary would beat Waterford. And obviously if they had done that, it made no difference. But as the events unfolded, we beat Cork, and obviously Waterford turned up tip. And sure, Matt, you have to say the Munster final, from my point of view, was one of the best sporting occasions I have attended. It was in the Gaelic grounds, the sun was roasting, everyone was in great form, it was Limerick and Clare. And like, at the end of the day, I slightly felt we were a good bit better than Tip that day, but the scoreline doesn't really reflect it. So, as from John's point of view, everything kind of fell into place for him, and it worked out for us. And Matt, like everybody this week, and ourselves, Matt, we're basking in the glory of 4 in a row. But you're picking up leagues and Munsters away there, Matt, down on top of it. There's a phenomenal collection of medals is what these boys are collecting as we go on. Like.
Yeah, but like John Kiely's record alone is absolutely unparalleled, and they can talk about Brian Cody, but has Brian Cody gone into 15? It's 15 finals, 13 senior and 221,
yes,
and won them all.
Yeah,
like,
unbelievable.
We're actually in dreamland, because believe it or not, I was around in 1973. As you know, I've been around for a while. I'm an old fella, as you'd probably think, but you know, and like we suffered 45 years, and we suffered it together, like, didn't we? As a collective around the county, like, and like there have been so many miserable days, like, but we couldn't in our wildest imagination think for 1 minute that what we're experiencing now would come our way.
Not a hope, not a chance of it, because as you said about the 45 years, look, we've seen Limerick teams back through the years. We've seen great teams that never got to Croke Park. We've seen great players from Limerick playing in Croke Park. We played in 2007, Jack, and unfortunately from my point of view, TJ would have played in the 94, 96, so I would have been 16 or 17, so they would have been my idols at that time. And like, the biggest crying shame over that 45 years was that 94, 96 team. That team was entitled to win an All-Ireland. I know you're entitled to nothing, but it was good enough to win an All-Ireland, but we just didn't get over the line. But in 2007, we met the second greatest team of all times, now we'll call them, right? But at least this Limerick team have an opportunity now of going in as the greatest hurling team of all times. And from my point of view, I can see nothing definitely standing in their way of preparation in making sure that they end up as the greatest team of all times.
Yeah, but Donie, you were comparing the Kilkenny team there and would say the Limerick team, and it's valid to make the comparison. They've both won 4 in a row, but and this is not to detract from Kilkenny or anything like that, but I'm just stating fact. Like, you know, it is it's so much more difficult to do it now, to come out of Munster with the round robin. Back in 100%. Those days, if you won 2 or 3 games in your province, you were guaranteed to be out of it. Now 100%. You're not. Well, you know, it's and like we you know, you can't say all Limerick adapted to the round robin, because during this reign, like, we had the COVID and we had the knockout. whether it is round
100%.
robin or knockout, Limerick have adjusted to it.
I would 100% agree with you, Matt. The Munster round, it's a double-edged sword for me because I've often spoken to the boys I played with back to years, right? And it's actually one regret that we, like, don't get me wrong, playing for Limerick is the greatest dream and all that of all times. But if you asked us, is what one thing would you have changed from our time to today, is we'd love to have played in the round robin, Matt. We'd love to have played in it. It's a fantastic competition. The Munster Championship is a fantastic competition. Unfortunately, from the Leinster point of view, they don't have as many series teams as what Munster have, right? Now, they still have 3 or 4 high-quality teams, but the level of competition there is not as high as it is in Munster. So you're 100% agree with you that if Kilkenny had to go through a Munster Championship campaign, I do not want to take away from any All-Irelands that they've ever won. They were a fantastic outfit, they were everything. But if they had to come through that level of competition, you don't know what the history books will be saying about them today. You don't know. The other thing I was making a point to Jack there before we came on, Matt, this is actually something that somebody, I didn't check this out now, by the way, but when Tipperary won the 4 in a row in 2010 and Limerick won it in 2023, I was just saying it to Jack and he thinks I was right, that the age profile of Limerick's 4 in a row must surely be back a few years from the Kilkenny team of 4 in a row. You know, Matt would say the best of the player. Like, Kyle Hayes is 25, like. Matt, the man is to face into his prime. Yeah, like, I actually don't know. As a fella said to me, like, what way would you approach him? Like, I actually don't even know what way you could go about challenging this fella, like. And like,
yeah, I agree. I agree totally. And from this remove, and you know, I asked John Kiely about 5 in a row and at the press afterwards, and he told me go away and enjoy this one. But you know, it is something that he, you know, as he said after the Galway game, it's something that is there and we can't get away from it. And like the narrative is all going to be about 5 in a row now, whether we like it or not, and rightly so. If we were sitting here now and we saw another county like Kilkenny or Wexford or Tipperary put on a performance,
we'd be
Limerick to complete the 4 in a row, we'd be scratching our head out to wonder how do you get the better of them.
We would, but at the same time, Matt, if you saw Kilkenny, Cork or Tip doing it, we're all hurling people, as you said. We'd be lauding them. We'd be do you know what I mean? I know we mightn't like to see it happening, but we'd be lauding how good they are and how they can get so many things right. To be fair, Matt, and you touched on 07. To be fair to that Kilkenny team from 06 to 2010, they had fantastic players. They had the greatest players that I have ever seen. From my point of view, this Limerick team is upsetting the apple tart for me because Henry Shefflin was the greatest player I'd ever seen on the field. But with this modern era, we have 2 or 3 potentials that can go on to be better even. So, look, it's very unfair to compare both teams. So from my point of view, what people should do is just appreciate both. And like this Limerick team, I think, is far from finished. I think that these boys are so level-headed, they're so grounded, they're so respected, and they're so good-natured around this week, even since Sunday. Like these boys, I would say, to be fair to these boys, you often hear a finish in a competition and you're delighted that you get a break. These boys are probably looking forward to getting going again, which is a phenomenal attribute you can pay to the players. Like,
yeah. Well, I agree with you totally there, because I remember in 2018, less than 2 weeks after the Limerick Senior Championship started, and I went to see Patrick's Well Played. And if you didn't know, if you were just told that there are 3 All-Ireland winners out there, they were the 3 top players on the pitch.
Yeah.
And here we were now on an absolute high. We were after achieving something that the county hadn't achieved for 45 years. Their adaptability and their ability to step back down to their clubs and the contribution they make to their clubs is simply phenomenal. And like, you know, as men, you know, they are the ultimate role models.
At the end of the day, Matt, it's an absolutely fantastic sign of a hurler that when you are finished with your county for that particular year, it's a great sign that a fella will come back and give his all to his club.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, they're very good to the public of Limerick to stop, take pictures and everything. And like these boys are hounded, like to be fair. And like I know people with families, and it's brilliant. And it's great to see that people can celebrate with Liam MacCarthy. But I've never heard a bad word of one of the players not giving an autograph or not taking a picture. And Darragh Donovan had an interview with Off the Ball during the week, and it's brilliant. And he spoke about character. He said he's not worried about how good a player is or how athletic he is. It's all about character, and these boys have it in abundance.
The one thing, Jack, the one comment John Kiely made, I think it was Tuesday, it was Monday evening in Perry Square. He was interviewed by some crowd, and John Kiely said, I want these boys to enjoy life as much off the pitch as these boys enjoy on it. Now, from my point of view, I know John fairly well. I'm not saying, geez, I'm not claiming that I'd be, but we had the privilege of winning a county with this man. And that was in 2005. And I'm going back nearly 20 years that we hurled with this man. And one thing I say about the man is John Kiely has never changed one bit. He's the very same today as that day. John is great company. He's great crack to be out with. He knows when to have the crack, but obviously he knows when the line has to be drawn in the sand. So he is definitely John Kiely made a statement in the paper last week. I think the boys would have done this without me. That's rubbish. Like that is, it's just every good team needs a leader, and the best advantage these Limerick players have is John Kiely is their leader, because what they are doing, meeting the people, meeting the public, as you said, Jack, taking their pictures, John would want them to do that. Do you know what I mean? John would be a very humble guy, and he would be top class in that regard. So he would be very proud of the fact that you're after saying that now, that these boys will take the time to do all this,
Yeah, and when he says they would have done it without him, like the crew leading from the front, the likes of Keane Lynch, Kyle, Tom Morrissey, Aaron Gillane, Sean Finbar, they all had John in 2020 or in 2015 with 21's team. Dear Burns was captain. So it's no coincidence that the boys he got at a young age are the ones driving it now.
It's an unbelievable stat. What John has brought on. And that team that won the All-Ireland, look at what we've got out of it. The other side of the scale is you're talking about, we'll say he has led them from the front, right? And as a hurling man would say, like, Mike Casey stepped from fullback to cornerback. Dan Morrissey played centre-back, wing-back and fullback. William O'Donoghue played centre-field, back to centre-back. Keane Lynch will play centre-field, centre-forward. It's a great attribute to the manager that when he asks a player to do a job for him, that these boys, like Barry Nash, came from the forwards to the backs, the cornerback even. So, like, it's some sign of a manager. Not alone did he move you out of your comfort zone, but he is getting the max out of these boys. So it's some sign of a team, of the whole team.
What would you have done if you were asked to go back cornerback?
Jack, to be honest, the truth with you, in the modern system, the one thing I prefer in the modern system, I prefer to play cornerback than corner forward, because I tell you one thing, Jack and Matt probably saw me playing a good bit now. There is no way I'd be following a cornerback back the field. So I'd go cornerback and I'd let the corner forward up the field. That's what I do.
Yeah, but talking about corner forwards, and we mentioned Aaron Gillane. You played in that position. Like, how good was Aaron this year? And especially when we needed him, he was quietish in the final. Other boys stepped up, but the Munster final, the All Ireland semi-final, were Aaron's games.
Yes, 100% agree with you. Look, at the end of the day, the tactic is quite simple out of Limerick, and we've all seen it. Aaron has to be kept up front at all times. He's obviously the outlet ball. The boys are told to play away with the ball, keep it as long as they can until they get comfortable with it and give it to him. But as a corner forward, as a target man, Aaron has the great sign. He can win any kind of a ball, high or low. He doesn't make any difference to him. He's just the kind of fella that just wants to keep getting it. And when he gets it, like, his shooting accuracy is off the Richter scale. Like, so as a corner forward, he's probably the dream corner forward. Now, the one thing I would say to Aaron, compared to when our time we were playing, the corner forward was always the fast, smart, nippy fella. Like, Aaron has taken physicality to a new, like in the semi-final against, he caught the ball off none other than Dahi Burke. Like, so it's just, he has taken it to a new level altogether. Because I was watching the match back, and I would advise anyone that sees it. Fellas are telling me Aaron was quiet. In the fifth, I think it was the 42nd minute, could be a bit later than that, We were 1 point down. And Jack, this is a bit of homework for you now. Watch Aaron Gillane score to level the match. Wait till you see the score. Watch it back, because there were so many points, as Matt said earlier on. You'd forget some of the scores that were got. But watch Aaron Gillane score to level the match. Like, if you got one of them in an All-Ireland final, you could live off it forevermore. Aaron just put the ball over the bar and sauntered back into the corner, corner forward, the very same again. So he would be, I would be thinking, you'd be your dream corner forward.
I was actually watching that score only about an hour ago. I think it might start with Dan Morrissey in defence, does it? And it goes into Flanagan. Yeah. But like, Flanagan threw it back out him, but he was 50 yards out on the sideline. Like. Yeah, and swiveled onto his, I don't know, he doesn't have a weaker side, but swiveled off whatever side he was on.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Hurler of the year, is he?
Sure, look, at the end of the day, to be fair, yes, he is. Look, in fairness to Kyle Hayes, I've Kyle Hayes back to be Hurler of the year. I am going to be promoting Kyle Hayes as much as I possibly can. But to be fair to Aaron Gillane, you hit the nail on the head there, Jack. When the matches were in the melting pot, Aaron Gillane was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I know you backed Kyle, but I know if you buy some Creeves had backed Aaron when he was very high odds. So you'll be different there. Matt, you're jumping in there.
Yeah, it was just a couple of things there, and you were talking about John Kiely and what he has achieved, Donie. I suppose assembling the team that he has on the field is only part of the story. He has assembled an excellent backroom team that totally work in coordination, which I suppose for any team is hugely important.
Oh, without a Matt, and I was actually very close to the whole scenario on Sunday. And what John does is he uses it excellently. He has a massive team. Paul Kinnerk never left his side. It's like having a man of the quality of Paul Kinnerk coming on behind you must be, from John, it's a dream partnership. I see Caroline Courage very close to the front. Like Alan Cunningham has a massive input. I was watching him on Sunday. He is massive. His knowledge of the game must be unbelievable. We say he's cute enough then to have Dodge and the Hurleys, right? And I would have played with Dodge. Like Dodge's knowledge of hurling would be outstanding. So to have a man like that you can throw something to is phenomenal. And what John Kiely actually uses very well is he's all his backroom team. His medical men are even used to the limit, you know. So you're 100% right, Matt. John Kiely has built a phenomenal panel of 37 players. But another massive factor for him is he has built 12 or 15 massive characters in his backroom team.
But to get a sense of the achievement, Donie, we cannot shy away from mentioning that, you know, the loss of Peter Casey and Keane Lynch last year, Sean Finn and Declan Hannon this year. You just say to yourself, well, Kilkenny in that position, and it was Mickey Butler and Ricky Reid were out. You know, we've seen over the years the inspiration that Declan Hannon is, and John Kiely now. I would say that, you know, he got a bit of time like that. He knew 3 weeks out or more from the Galway game that he had time to prepare for it. But like the manner in which they meticulously prepared for, and if you were told at the start of the 2022 championship that we were going to be without Peter Casey and Keane Lynch, you'd throw your hands up and you'd say, "Ah, hell," you know. And the same this year, if you were told you're going to be without Sean Finn and Declan Hannon, I think that is something that can be lost. John Kiely has been dogged by injury. Like, to get 2 cruciates in the one evening, 9 days out from an All-Ireland final, you know, and to come from it, it's just simply, it's unimaginable.
Massive sign, Matt, massive sign of the faith in the 37, a massive sign of it. I would say these boys, in fairness to Declan, look, I actually thought Declan was going to be, obviously was a huge loss, but I thought it was going to be a telling factor. When we got to Croke Park, I thought Declan's calming influence over the whole thing was phenomenal. We were 7 points up against Cork, I think, and Declan went off, and Cork brought it back to a point. We were 5 or 6 up against Clare, and Declan went off, and they brought it back to within a point. I was very fearful of Declan missing. The other thing is, you said there about missing the players and what would other teams do. He did throw us off centre when he named William O'Donoghue at centre back. I did not see that one coming. I thought he would have left William in the middle of the field because, to be fair to William O'Donoghue, another man in the Dan Morrissey category, he is after a phenomenal year, what the man is after doing. If you go back to the Cork match in the Munster Championship, he had a monstrous game that day. He set up scores. He broke down Cork attacks. He brought ball out of defence. He was up and down the field. So to be able, like you're saying about pulling Richie Reid out of Kilkenny, like to take one of the best midfielders in the country and put him back centre back, and the team still can play to that potential, is a fair sign of the panel of players that he has.
Yeah. But you just touched on him there, and we you cannot have a full conversation about last week's All Ireland, and indeed without mentioning Keane Lynch. I have been on record as saying that he's the best hurler of all time, and I think that view has been reinforced particularly over the last two games. When you look at what he has been through, we'll say last year, and at the start of this year, and to get to Croke Park, for basically what it was his first two full games of the year,
yes,
and the type
100%.
of performances that he turned on, it's only somebody so special can do it.
Well, sure, Matt, the only way you can describe the two performances, well, I thought in the semi-final, when I was at the matchup there, I said, geez, Keane was kind of in and out of it. But when I came home and watched it on telly, he had huge influence on the whole performance. But in the final, it's just the man's skill and his level. The only way to describe Keane Lynch is if Limerick had a third match to play in 2 weeks' time, he would come into reckoning for Hurler of the year with his three matches. He's so good, like. So, yeah. But 100% agree. We go back to the start of the show. You said about Wexford or Cork or Tipperary or Clare. Jeez, Matt, like, we're just blessed that we're able to see these boys. And in 10 days' time, we'll be coming up against them. So it's actually surreal, to be honest, when you think about it. How close you can get to these boys, how good they are, and to be able to say in years' time to come, hopefully, that we were lucky enough to witness it all ourselves. Like, so it's fantastic time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just incredible, really. And I know we can't get drawn too much on the Kilkenny team from the past, but who from that Kilkenny team would you say would definitely make into this Limerick team, like from playing against them? I won't say who we have to take out, but is there? You mentioned that halfback line that had Tommy and JJ.
Yeah.
No, there's only a couple that would, but there are a couple.
Yeah, well, you see, yeah. I suppose when you put comparisons together, you have to go style of plays too, and you're asking who's the manager and who's the coach. Like Jackie Turrell was an absolute series cornerback. You'd have to seriously consider him for any team. But he was up against Barry Nash, and Barry Nash can do things like that I have never ever seen cornerbacks do. You've obviously Tommy and JJ. And like up front, like you James Chaff Fitzpatrick in the middle of the field now. He was a fair yoke. James Chaff was a fair yoke. Like, now he retired very early, but he was a fair hurler. And like you go up front then, like, and you'd Eddie Brennan, Owen Larkin, Richie Power. Like, I'm talking some serious quality players. And I didn't even get to the King yet. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's difficult to know what way we want to look. From my point of view, right? I don't really want to compare them, but it would have been some battle between the two teams now. But I think overall, like, it's very, very difficult to say, because there were different times. A bigger question then is, who would you want to referee? If that team met the modern team, who would you want to referee it? Do you know what I mean? What way do you want to referee it? Like, so if that Kilkenny team was meeting this, they thought they were physical. But like, when you see these boys up close, and Matt has stood into them many's a time to try and interview them, you're talking about giants. Like, so the only way to describe them is giants. Like, so it's very, very difficult. But Kilkenny had they had quality players, they had great players, and it's very difficult to manage them. But you'll be thinking there will be definitely 3 or 4 of them will come into line. But tis hard to fault any of the Limerick fellas now, to be fair to them. Matt, I'll ask you one question, Matt. Cathal O'Neill, like, he'd be on a lot of teams, like.
He'd be on every other county team but Limerick.
I think so. Like, he'd be.
And that includes Kilkenny. Kilkenny, Cork. What would they give for him?
Yes. Like,
You
he's
know,
a phenomenal player. Like.
what we're seeing when you're talking about Cathal O'Neill, what we're seeing is only his impact off the bench.
Yes.
But like we saw Cathal O'Neill when he was at underage level and when he was at under 20 level, and like, you know, this is one thing that gets me going the wrong way, Donie. When I think of last year's All Ireland under 20 final, and Cathal O'Neill couldn't play in it because of an asinine rule and nothing else,
Yes.
you know.
100%, Matt.
But when we
100% agree with you.
He stood out at that level, and you know, I would, you know, don't ask me who should he replace, but I would just love to see the day when Cathal O'Neill gets 70 minutes.
Yeah, no, Matt, 100% agree with you. He's a fantastic player, and I'm going to reiterate what you said there. I 100% agree with you that the under 20 rule is an absolutely scandalous rule. It happened again with Cork this year. It happened with him, and it's a phenomenal rule that because a player is of such high quality that he suffers, that he can't play his own grade. So it's a bit stupid, to be honest with you. If the truth be told, it's a stupid rule, to be honest with you. But look, and Cathal and look, Derek Lyng won an under 20 All Ireland with Kilkenny, right? The question mark will always remain that if we could have our full complement, would he have won the under 20 All Ireland?
But the funny part about it is, Donie, that, you know, part of the reasoning behind the rule, of course, was burnout.
Yeah.
And we convert the Munster Championship then from a knockout to a round robin.
100%.
You know, you couldn't make it up, you know.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Yeah, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, but we don't want to lose how good Cathal has been for the seniors. You know, there's a reason that he missed it, like, and it's true how good he is, you know. But if I think Cathal, like, the way he's going, he'll be starting next May or April, and that's the other thing about Limerick, Donie, is none of the players can really rest assured, because if you bring back Declan and Sean, you know, they're probably going to start. Cathal will want to be starting. Shane O'Brien has more time. Adam English when his debut. Aaron Costello's in now. That they won't get complacent, because there's no chance to get complacent, because he'll be gone.
Yeah, 100% agree with you.
We have mentioned Colin Coughlin.
And there's another player coming from Ballybrown, Matt, who's a high quality player. I've seen him firsthand playing against him at Ballybrown at club level. Aidan O'Connor is a serious talent as well.
Yeah, I saw that performance against the Bouncers last year.
Yes, very, very, very impressive young fella, and he'll have a year under his belt now, and he's only a young fella, like, so he'll come strong as well. So look, without a shadow of a doubt, the only thing is a side throw from that there now, Jack, and Matt will more than likely be covering it, because what he does with the Vales, I actually don't know how he gets all the matches, is we're playing Cathal O'Neill in the Junior A Hurling Championship, and I am after being given the task of I'll be man marking him that day, Jack. So I don't want to blow him up too much. Just in case that he. So
I thought you'd retired.
I think I'm coming back just especially for this year. After what I saw in Croke Park, I felt that it was the only thing to do. Maybe was to come out of it to have a cut.
Yeah, you're laying out your intentions in the line early this year.
Jack,
get after celebrations.
I'll tell you one thing, Jack. I'll tell you one thing, Jack. The fella that'll get the job of marking him, he'll definitely sleep that night, I guarantee you.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I was down to mark Cathal O'Neill, I'd be sending him out for points every day of the week until that game came. I'd be saying,
100%.
I'd enjoy the celebration.
Not easier playing goal for Ballysteen footballers, Jack.
Yeah, well, I couldn't take that either. But on the celebrations themselves, actually, I think I kind of got a sense that the players nearly have enjoyed this one as much as any. Maybe not 2018, because that's different, but there seems to be a real, I don't know, buzz that they've won a fourth one, and you'd think that maybe a small bit of hunger would subside and that celebrations would be a bit tamer, but not with these boys. They know well what they've achieved, and they're dead right to celebrate the way they are.
I think the fact, Jack, I think one of the main reasons for that is the level of doubt came in all over the country. All the counties outside were questioning whether Limerick could sustain it 4 in a row or not. So I think the level of celebration, I think, is coming from the level of satisfaction that the boys got. Like as Matt said there, Sean Finn and Declan Hannon, like to call a spade, to lose two all-stars, like to lose them out of your starting 15, the question marks come, the Munster teams think they're getting closer to you. Like the level of satisfaction they must have got last Sunday evening, that is the sure sign of your level of celebration, I think.
Yeah.
But Donie, like you're talking about losing the two boys. Like, add in Richie English,
Yeah,
and you
100%.
lost 3 of your first 7 defenders.
Yes, 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. And like, it's a fair testament to Aaron Kostler. He got a spin out last Sunday, and his debut for the Limerick Seniors is in the All-Ireland final. That'll tell you, like, of the level of commitment that these boys can put in to see it through. Like, do you know what I'm saying? You were down to, like, as Matt said, you're losing 3 of your 7 defenders, and still you have boys fighting the cause to get Limerick over the line, you know?
Yeah, but I think the one
We
thing
had a
about
discussion last week, Donie, with Nicky Brennan. We had quite a prolonged discussion about the goalkeepers. What's your take on Murphy and Quaid?
Yeah, look, 100% agree with you. I'm going to be a completely 100% biased here, and I don't really want to be, because I love watching Owen Murphy playing. But I don't think Owen Murphy makes fantastic saves. It's unbelievable what the man can do. His eye for the ball is fantastic, but he can get turned up in his puck outs. But what Nicky Quaid has done for Limerick, Nicky Quaid started all of this 5 All-Irelands and 4 in a row. Because for me, the changing point in Limerick's whole success story was the flick in 2018 in the All-Ireland semi-final. Harnedy had the ball stuck in the net, Nicky blocked it, and the rest is complete history. I watched his puck out. Nicky's greatest attribute, and it's a great sign of him, is when the pressure is the most, Nicky really comes in, really steps up in the plate. So for me, Matt, Owen Murphy, high quality keeper, top class shot stopper, an awful lot of things going for him. But not for me is he better than Nicky Quaid. Not a hope of it.
Yeah,
I'm on the same hymn sheet completely as you, Donie, on that. I couldn't agree more, because look, Owen Murphy is a fantastic shot stopper, but what you're talking about is the totality of a goalkeeper.
Yes.
And Nicky has got it every bit of it, you know.
Yes.
And like 2 All-Stars, and I hate talking about these All-Stars, but it's a paltry return for the contribution that he has made over the last 6 years.
Yeah, 100%. And like, at the end of the day, right, I see all the media the other night, they're giving Owen Murphy, it was a fantastic save against Clare. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic thing to be able to do. It was brilliant. But in the overall scheme of things, like, Nicky's contribution to this team is phenomenal. Like, I was of the opinion at one stage during this year that Nicky Quaid would come into contention for Hurler the year. I thought he'd break with tradition, and I thought he could have been the first goalie ever to get Hurler the year. His puck outs are so... You go back to the 21 points last week, Nicky's restarts, he definitely had a hand in 10 of them, I'd say. So that's phenomenal. What he's at there?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in Limerick would swap Nicky Quaid for any goalie in the country. I think they'd be mad to as well. And another one of those boys like Dan Morris, he will don't know who Dara, that goes underrated. But I think people slowly appreciate these lads and the role they have to play. But we touched on the 5 in a row, and it's not really we shouldn't really talk about it now, because we should bask in the 4 in a row. But who do you think is the closest challenger?
It's definitely Jack. It's definitely Munster. I would have no issues when we come out of Munster. It's just, obviously, the draw will be made next for 2024. We're away to Cork. We're away to Clare. 2 tough matches to be away for now. So you've Waterford coming to town. You've Tip coming to town. I think all the teams in Munster are getting slightly better, but if Limerick can maintain the hunger, if they go for the drive for 5, and I know it's a shame to be talking about it in the week that we're in it, but it is most definitely in their hands. Who are the closest? I think Clare would probably the closest. I think they're not far off it. In fairness, Clare, they're 1 or 2 players off it, and of all the teams that like playing against Limerick, the neighbourly love between Clare and Limerick is the matchup that can kind of take on a life of its own, you know. And I have to give a small mention then to Matt's near neighbours. He's closer than me, and I'm fair close. Would be the Bold Rebels down the road. In fairness to them, eventually they'll probably get their house in order.
Yeah.
Eventually. So them two for me would probably be, I think, the closest.
Yeah, I think Cork are definitely coming.
Yeah.
But on that, you know, Clare obviously beat Limerick this year, but it was
Yeah.
again, it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Limerick's record that Matt alluded to a while ago, like 15 from 15, the 13 in the senior. Like, how can a team win so many finals without getting caught once? You
Yeah.
know, it's just incredible.
Yeah, Keane Lynch said it in his speech. In my opinion, Keane Lynch gave it all in his speech. He said that there's an awful lot of good men behind the whole setup, and he said there's one great woman. And to be fair to her, I have to give it to her that I think her level of work has really grounded. These boys are in a circle at the moment, and they need to make the very, very most of it. And she is getting it through to them. And to be fair to them, they're backing it up then when they go on the field. Like, Jack, you're 100% right. Like, how can you face 15 finals and not get cocky in one of them? And if you go back to all the finals, right, we have performed as good as any performance in the year in the final.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how they can do that. There's definitely someone working their magic, and I like the boys. I like the way the boys had the respect for her after the match the other day, and the way they speak about her. In fairness to her level of work, it's working magic for Limerick at the moment.
Matt?
Just to take up something there, Jack, that Donie touched on, and like, you know, we witnessed one of the great finals in Croke Park, or certainly one of the greatest half finals in the second half. But we also mentioned, and you touched on it, we also witnessed one of the great acceptance speeches from Keane Lynch.
100% agree with you. 100%, yeah. Unbelievable. He's great, man. Look, to be fair to Keane, he's one of the most soundest men you could meet. He's a gentleman off the field, a gentleman, and it came across. And you know straight away that it was going to be a great speech, because Keane meant what he was saying. It was fantastic. He's a fantastic leader, fantastic captain, and like, you hit the nail on the head there with what he's gone through. Like, geez, like, it makes it sweeter even to be able to watch him doing this, like, you know. And like, to be fair to Declan, like, you have to feel sorry for Declan that Sunday evening. Whatever about, like, every fella wants to play on Croke Park, to be fair to him, right? But this man was going up the steps, Matt, for 5 MacCarthy Cups, like, and a cruel injury took it off him, you know. But to be fair, like, a vintage, this setup and John Kiely's management and everything, Declan rode in behind the boys, and I read today in the paper that Declan gave a speech at half time, and it helped him massively in the second half performance. Great sign of the man, Declan, another humble man, another down-to-earth man. Do you know what I mean? It's phenomenal what these boys, the control they have of themselves is phenomenal what they're putting themselves through.
Yeah, they're just...
Yeah, but Declan's speeches, in fairness, over the last 4 years are the biggest challengers to Keane's. You know, they're all on a par like them. You know, and the humility, you know, it oozes out of them, you know.
It's unbelievable. Like, and like Declan Hannon has led us to 4 MacCarthy Cups, and hopefully he'll be back. If he's back next year, he's back in again as captain, or whatever way John wants to go about it. But to touch on Keane Lynch there, you say it. Like, Matt, when I was a young fella growing up, Patrick's Well were the pinnacle, like. They were the pinnacle club in Limerick, right? And like, Matt, the 3 players you mentioned earlier on there, and just about what they have, there's a fair chance they're going to get the third hurler. Like, what an achievement for a club, like, for a club of Patrick's Well stature, to have 3 hurlers of the year in the, like, Jesus, Matt, it's some turnout of players, like.
It's unbelievable, absolutely. When it comes for all that they have won domestically, like,
yes,
you know, until 2018, their return of All Ireland medals was pretty paltry. Now, you'd have to say,
yes,
you know,
yes.
You'd go back to Richie Bennis and then Phil Bennis and Frankie Nolan and those, Sean Foley in 73. But you know, they had a very fallow period in the meantime, 45 years. But for what the contribution they've made as a club, and what they have achieved in the Limerick domestic championships, 20 times Limerick champions, absolutely phenomenal.
No, a fantastic club. And we have a fantastic club. What they've done has been unbelievable. And what they've produced has been unbelievable.
If Garryspillane get to or Limerick quarter-final, they're playing patch well, are you marking Keane or Aaron or Diarmid? Pick your poison. Pick your poison there.
I think now, Jack, I think the best thing, we'll take your advice on that one, I think, and we'll skip that one, I'm afraid. I'd say we'll have to sit that one out, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We won't be around that day.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be. There's one thing I just wanted to say to you, John, before we left, and you had mentioned that you were fairly close to the field, and you mentioned a few times the size of these players, because I was listening to a football podcast. They were on about the Kerry Dublin game, and they were at the Limerick match, and they were saying they couldn't get over how big these Limerick players, but they're as skillful as anyone else. It's just they're freaks in the best way.
Well, I had the privilege there 2 years ago. I'd say I had the privilege of standing. We were playing St. Patrick's in the Junior Championship. I had the privilege of standing on the same field as Garrod Hegarty. Now, thanks be to God, he was at one side and I was at the other. But after the match, I actually went up to him just to shake his hands, obviously. And Jesus, Jack, I could, for such a big man, his level of skill on the ground, like, it's actually surreal to try and compromise how he can get down over the ball. He can flick it, their flicks into their hand. What they can do with a hurley, I have never seen anything like. They're unbelievable for big men. Like, you're talking about, we'll go through the physicality of the team, right? Dan Morrissey, Diarmid Burns, Declan Hannon, William O'Donoghue, Kyle Hayes, Garrod Hegarty. Gillane is a big yoke. Flanagan is a big yoke. We'll say, just in case, Dean, you're lucky enough to avoid them, right? Like, you've Mike Casey, Dalla Donovan, Tom Morrissey, Peter. Like, these mightn't be the tallest, but they're built like tanks, like. Yeah. So, like, it's just physicality. You just, I actually don't know what way you'd approach, how you're going to get around these fellas, you know? And, like, to touch back into Croke Park, for the 45 years of hurt we were on about, we often went to Croke Park and we didn't perform as good as we should have a lot of times, right? These boys have gone to Croke Park and performed every time, which is some sign of the team. They've performed every match they've played in Croke Park. They've performed.
Yeah, there's very few days they haven't performed, to be fair to them. Go on.
No, to be fair, you're right, Jack. Yeah, very few days they haven't performed, but
you're absolutely Jack, right. You have.
Unfortunately, Jack, the MacCarthy Cup is given out in Croke Park. It's not given out in any other ground in Ireland. And unfortunately, that's where you have to perform to your best to try and collect it. And these boys, by Jesus, when they walk out onto the field, whatever the grass does to them up there, they can really turn the screw by, and they can demolish a team in 10, 15 minutes, like.
Yeah. Matt, I'll throw it over to you there before
if you disregard, you're right. If you disregard the 2019, Jack, if you disregard the 2019 semi-final, and we know the controversial circumstances in which it ended, had we got that 65, we had three of the top marksmen in the country, Adam Gillane, Shane Dowling and Diarmid Burns, who, in my opinion, whichever one of them took it on would have potted the 65. We've won 5 semi-finals in Croke Park. We've won 5 finals in Croke Park. We've won a National League final in Croke Park. So, like, from being our graveyard, it's gone to being our happy hunting ground.
100%. 100% agree with you, yeah. Unfortunately, and you have to be able to perform there. You have to be, and these boys, they know, they sense it, they can smell it by when they get to Croke Park. They know how to get over the line.
Yeah, that's one thing they're definitely good at. Donie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you for the last hour. It's been a pleasure watching this Limerick team, as you well know yourself, and there's no sign of stopping them. I think it is the major thing to take from this last hour or so.
No sign, Jack. Hi, Jack. Thanks very much. Hi, Matt. No bother. Thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks a million, Donie.
Take care, Donie.
We'll be in touch again soon. Mind yourself. Good luck. Good luck. Now, Donie Ryan, former Limerick hurler, came up against the second greatest team of all time, Matt.
Donie Ryan, apart from being a great hurler, like, is one of the great characters of the GAAs. You got a snapshot of it there, Jack. But being a great hurler and, you know, being a character, but what an informed character he is about the game. Like, you could see his passion for the game, his love for the game, and above all, Jack, his intimate knowledge of the game is just simply phenomenal, you know.
Oh, he knows exactly what he's talking about, and obviously played at the highest level. And if it wasn't for that Kilkenny team, very likely that he'd have an All-Ireland medal and there'd be more All-Ireland medals going around.
Yeah,
But
like,
the current crop are making up for it, Matt, aren't they? They're slowly but surely rising up the ranks. I think I counted 18 of them now have 5 All-Ireland medals, and you'll go a long way find more lads outside of Kilkenny that have won 5 All-Ireland medals. And it is quite hard to I suppose realise what exactly this team are doing, because you're in the here and now, and there's no sign of it stopping, and it will stop eventually. That's a given, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon. But we won't look forward anymore, Matt, because we need to really appreciate the team. What was Sunday like for you overall?
Sure. Look, despite the logistics of getting there and getting home, I didn't get home till 1 a.m. But look, you'd suffer anything just to see this team, and I'll tell you, walking back into Abbey Street and getting the loose back to the Red Cow, and it absolutely crumbed like sardines. Look, you suffer all that because the overriding consideration on a day like that is just what you have seen, and really, you need a bit of time and you need a bit of space after a performance like that to put into context what exactly has been achieved. Because, as you said there earlier on, you're living in the here and now, and you're only looking back retrospectively a matter of hours. But in the cold light of day on Monday, and you sat down and you thought, gee, thinking back to 73, the hopes, thinking back to 1980, the final against Galway, the 2 finals in the 90s, 94 and 96 that got away, the 2007 final when you extrapolate the 2 goals, as Donie Ryan said, that Kilkenny got early on in the game, and it was a pretty even game after that because Limerick more than matched Kilkenny. And, and here we are now, celebrating 4 in a row, 5 in 6 years. It's then it dawns on you, and sort of you come to terms with the magnitude of it, and you sort of analyse and you say to yourself, why did it happen? And you can only come to one conclusion, Jack, that from a Limerick hurling point of view, we're witnessing, as I said earlier in the podcast, we're not just witnessing hurling, we're witnessing hurling greatness. And I have no doubt, Jack, and I'll be accused of green mist in my glasses and green mist in my eyes and my ears, but I don't care where I'm accused of it. This is the best team of all time, best team I've ever seen, anyway.
Oh, I grew up with the Kilkenny team of 06 to 09, I suppose, up to 2015, really. And I always just watching games, you had no hope for the opposition. And we're obviously biased now, and I don't think teams are going to beat Limerick as well. So I won't say it yet. I think I'd let Limerick win the 5 in a row, and then the history books will speak for itself. But in the last 10, 15 years, there's been nothing like this team. Kilkenny 06 to 09 are the only ones that can compare to them. And I think when the history books are written, it won't be comparable anymore. It'll be the second best team, and Limerick as the best team. But Matt, again, from a historical point of view, Kilkenny have done the 4 in a row, and so have Cork, and Limerick have done it now. And there was teams that did 3 in a row. But for a team outside of Cork, Kilkenny, and I suppose Tipperary as well, to do this, like Limerick have won 12 All-Irelands. They've won nearly half of those in the last 6 years. A team like Limerick isn't supposed to win this many All-Irelands this quick.
But that was the perception, like, Jack, and we were entitled to be very downcast particularly in the 90s, when, let's say in inverted commas, the minnows came to the top, and in that period you had Offaly getting their All-Irelands, you had Clare getting their All-Irelands, you had Wexford getting their All-Irelands, and we were still the bridesmaids. We were losing 2, and you were beginning to say to yourself, look, our day isn't going to come at all. And then prior to that, you had at the end coming up to 90, you had Galway getting their All-Irelands in all 4 counties. You know, there were below us in the Roll of Honour at that time and are considerably below us now. You know, they were getting like Galway got 2, Offaly got 2, Clare got 2, or did Offaly get 3? They did 2, and Wexford got 1, you know. And we were saying to ourselves, you know, we're regarded as one of the stronger hurling counties. How can this be happening? You know, and we just can't, you know, but by God, you know, we've made up for it now. And I wouldn't be apologetic to anybody, Jack, for we winning 5 All-Irelands in 6 years. You know, the structures were put in place dating back to, you know, lifting the treaty and, you know, the people that had a bit of vision. And above all, what was necessary, you know, when lifting the treaty started and all that sort of thing, Jack. And the structures were proper structures were put in place. That there was one ingredient that was there, and it's an ingredient that you find very little of in sport, and that's patience. You know, and it all started coming good when Brian Ryan's side won back-to-back minor championships in 2013, 2014, and that was a breakthrough in itself. We had only won, like, you know, if you won a round of the Munster Championship for a number of years there, you know, you were seen to the high heavens. And here we were winning 2 in a row for the first time ever in our history. And then move on, fast forward to 2015. And John Kiely's all-conquering under-21 team. Move on another 2 years, and we had Pat Donnelly's team. So the bricks were being slowly laid, you know, and were being laid on a very, very solid foundation. And I remember at the presentation of medals to the Limerick under-21 team of 2015 in the Woodlands. John Kiely gave a speech that night as their manager. And anyone that wanted to listen to him, you know, and anyone that wanted to take heed of him, he put no twos in it. He said, if this is to be converted into success at senior level, it's a 3-year job. He was proved totally right. Absolutely, totally right. 2015, 2018. And the rest is history.
Well, John Kiely doesn't get much wrong. A leader
of
men.
He gets nothing wrong in my book, you know.
Yeah, and you talked about patience, Matt, but also an awful lot of hard work. You know, like John, Paul, Angus, Donald, Caroline, these people, and the ones that have gone before them, Mike Kiely, Joe O'Connor, and them, they have put it, and Cara now, obviously, of course, is current SNC, but they put in so much work. But the players themselves, Matt, like we saw them, you mentioned that minor team. You know, when you look at the size of those lads then compared to now, you know, and obviously skill levels have improved and they're brilliant hurlers, but sheer physicality that has become so important to the game doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen over the course of a year. That is year on year consistency in the gym, on the field, and they're monsters of men. And obviously Kyle is tall and Garrod is tall, Diarmaid's tall, but the muscle they put on. Mike Casey, you know, isn't that tall, but you would not want to go near that man. Darragh Donovan is the same, very strong lads that they have put in so much work to get where they are, and you know, they're totally deserving of every accolade they get.
Absolutely, we couldn't give them enough of accolades, but we tend to hand out the accolades on, we'd say, the basis of the performance of last Sunday. But we really, Jack, have to delve into how did that type of performance come, and basically you're talking about a group of guys, you know. And an excellent management team that John Kiely has assembled, to a certain degree, putting their lives on hold for our gratification. You know, like it's grand. It's grand to revel and eulogize in Croke Park and in the precincts of Croke Park after the All-Ireland final. But, you know, ask yourself the question and stand and reflect for a minute. Reflect for a minute when these guys were out in the wet, wind, frost and snow last December, January and February. You know, there's where the foundation of last Sunday were laid, when these fellas, you know, we were sitting watching television, Fair City or whatever other city or match or Monday night football or whatever, you know. But these guys, you know, they were slogging it out, you know, and like last Sunday just, it just doesn't happen, Jack, by accident. You know,
No.
and we've got a sense of it over the last 6 years. But, you know, for the skill levels, the fitness levels, everything, full credit to them. But full credit to them for the sacrifices they have made to bring themselves to this level. You know, it's grand. We see it all in Croke Park. We see it in Thurles. We see it in Cork. We see it wherever, you know. But the work that goes on behind it, the protracted amount of work that goes on behind it, and the amount of their time that they give up at the end of the day for our gratification is just simply phenomenal. Full credit to them, Jack.
Yeah, I think thank you is probably the most apt thing you could say at this time for the great days and the enjoyment. As a city as a whole, and Limerick has got a bad rep over the years, but these boys nearly are single-handedly, you know, they're boosting the economy so much, first and foremost, but the joy in people's faces, the pride to say you're from Limerick and, you know some of these boys and they're from the same area as you, and the signage around the city and county, the bunting, flags, everything lights up a city, these group of men and that one special woman and everyone involved, their partners, wives, kids, everything. You know, they all play into it. We're all feeding off it, and long may it continue. And as Donie Ryan says,
Jack, I'm seeing people going around with smiles. I thought they wouldn't even be able to smile. So, and that's been brought about by these boys.
Yeah, Limerick Hurlers making the impossible possible. So I hope to God the lads are still enjoying it. It's Wednesday afternoon. They've probably had a heavy few days of it, but they'll get through it because next week I'm sure they'll be getting the club managers will be on to them maybe on Sunday evening or Monday morning saying, "Hi, we have a match the weekend," but we will be looking forward to that next week, Matt. But what a win! What a weekend.
I just make a point. I just make a point to you on that, Jack. My own clubman, David MacCarthy, and congratulations to him. He was the sub goalkeeper. David is in championship action tomorrow evening with Limerick, with Glenroe against Napirsig in the first round of the Premier Intermediate Championship. And also at the weekend, you have Nicky Quaid, Fergal O'Connor, David Reedy. They're not going to have much time to celebrate, and we know of those individuals. You know the type of commitment that they give to their clubs. Like Dave has only had 4 days. You know, Nicky and Ferguson and David Reedy, they've had 7 days. But you will see the following weekend. You know, you will see the lads with the senior clubs hitting the ground running. You know, it's a hallmark of what these guys are about. And I will never forget. Back in 2018, as I said, I went to a match 11 days after the final, and like you would excuse the county players, you know, if had getting carried away and all the narrative about ending 45 years and all that. And inside in Clahan, the 3 best players on the field were Dermot Burns, Keane Lynch, and Adam Gillane.
Yeah, you can't tell me you were surprised about it though.
No. Well, to an element, I wasn't surprised. But hadn't they been the 3 best players in the field, I would have excused them in the circumstances.
Yeah, well, 3 of the best in Limerick, and by God, we were blessed with an awful lot of very good players. But what a few days it's been, and we'll enjoy the 4 in a row before there's any more talk of a drive for 5. But well done.
John Kiely lectured me in Croke Park about that when I asked him about the 5 in a row. I said, "For God's sake, Matt, will you enjoy this one?"
You hardly expected a different answer from John, but it's not the only All-Ireland final that we'll be talking about, Matt, because on Saturday afternoon, the Limerick ladies footballers did their part in securing a double All-Ireland final anyway. They won their semi-final 10 points to 1-6 against Fermanagh, a team that have beaten them in 2 semi-finals in recent years. But Graham Shineside showed great courage, I suppose, after very slow start. There wasn't a score for 25 minutes. Fermanagh got a goal in the first half to take a healthy-ish lead into the half, but Limerick controlled the second period, and they're into an All-Ireland final on September 13th.
Yeah, Jack, and I can't say I have any level of surprise at it, because I saw the 2 games against Sligo and against Down, two
Down.
teams down from intermediate, and who play in Division 3 in the Football League. And I heard people saying in Newcastle West, when we lost to Down, kind of throwing their hands in the air saying, oh, gee, we're up against Fermanagh again. But I didn't see it that way at all, Jack, because you must remember we played Fermanagh in 2 semi-finals last year and we won one of them.
Yeah,
we won the league semi-final. And they won the championship semi-final on a day when we hit the crossbar and the post 4 or 5 times. Now, they scored 7 goals against us. And, you know, this is classical. And I had people, and if I can digress slightly to the Talton Cup for a minute, Laois came down and beat us, and people said, oh, when they got heavily turned over by Down, like the only difference of there being winning and being heavily turned over is we created the chances, the goal chances, and didn't take them, and Down did. And yeah, but I thought they were very, very good against Sligo. They played against the wind in the first half against Down. I thought they did a very, very good job in containment. And it was in the second half it went wrong a bit, Jack. Down got a kind of a fortuitous goal sort of early in the second half, and Limerick really didn't recover from it. And I was quite happy when they were going to Longford last week that they were in with a real good chance if they could recapture the level of performance that they showed against Sligo. You know, and you know, once something like that is in a team, and maybe the second half against Down served as a very timely wake-up call. Now, it was a close call against Fermanagh, but the conditions in Pearse Park on last Saturday, Jack, were dire. At times, they were monsoon. And you're right, actually, you know, there was no score for the first 26 minutes. And Fermanagh got a goal before half-time. And it was 1-2 then to a point at half-time. But Limerick really drove on in the second half. And, you know, full credit to 𝘕𝘰𝘦 𝘔𝘴, a new player that has come in from the Father Casey's club and is a free taker. And she got 6 points in the second half, which was fantastic. And Katty Mee got a couple of points. Iris Kennelly, Limerick lost Iris Kennelly early in the second half to injury, which was a huge loss. So and I think it was Andrea O'Sullivan got the other point, 10 points in total. So 10 points to 1-6. Yeah, we were really looking forward to the rematch with Down, Jack. And I'm of the opinion, and you'll probably accuse me of green mist and all that sort of thing, and you'll say that fella's ranting again. But I think we're in with a real shout against Down, a real 100%. Chance. Like, I think Graham Shine has done a very, very good job, and I think he very wisely and judiciously used the second half performance against Down to whip up the girls, you know, into the type of performance there was, you know, and 10 points to 1-6, Jack, flatters Fermanagh. It flatters Fermanagh because Limerick had the upper hand but weren't able to convert it onto the scoreboard on a very, very difficult day. It was one of those days, Jack, when a game and a result to a certain degree becomes a lottery. You know, and 'tis who adjusted best, and that has to be Limerick, because going down the home straight they were 3 points clear. But Fermanagh got 2 late points. But Limerick saw it out comfortably after that. Jack, I'd be pretty confident going back to Croke Park. Looking forward to going back to Croke Park next Sunday, 2 weeks. And I'm hoping for a repeat of 2018, Jack. We won the senior hurling and we won the junior football. Lovely double. 2 trips to Croke Park. 2 wins. Happy days, Jack.
Yeah, halfway there. We've 1 more to go, but well done to Graham Shine and the team, and we're looking forward to that game in depth in a fortnight's time. That game is on in 3 weeks in Croke Park against Down.
It's on, Jack, for anybody that's interested in getting to Croke Park on that day. It's on Sunday the 13th, I think.
Yeah, 11:15.
And it's on, you know, for late risers. Wait for it. It's on at 11:45, 11:45.
Yeah, late risers should stay in Dublin on Saturday night.
They
um,
should.
if they can, if they, but yeah, look, it'll be another
Or,
great day
or
out.
else stay in their beds, you know.
Yeah, another great day out for Limerick, and as you said, hopefully it'll be a double like that in 2018. And finally, Matt, the Masters, it's coming kind of towards the end of the group stage, round robin kind of logistical thing that's going on there, but looks like Limerick will be in the we'll say group 5 semi-final. I don't know, is group 5 or section 5 semi-final, but that's looking what it'll be as they head into their final round robin game.
It is, Jack. They're going to be in the knockout stage. It is yet to be determined because they're playing against Cork on Saturday in Mitchelstown at 1:00, and were they to win that, it could propel them up the groups. But at this remove anyway, Limerick have qualified for the knockout stage of the competition. There were 23 teams at the start, and the bottom three teams just drop out, and the top 4, second 4, third 4, fourth 4, and fifth 4 play semi-finals and the final, and it should certainly be within Limerick's compass to get to now that they're in a semi-final, to get to a final. But that's something we'll be talking about down the road. But I saw the game against Roscommon in Pats on last Saturday, and first of all, can I say congratulations to Pats, Jack, because they left no stone unturned in ensuring that everything was in ship shape for the fixture, and their pitch was in excellent condition, and certainly Limerick couldn't fault the pitch, but Limerick got a very, very good start and were 4 points to no score up. Roscommon got a couple of points before half time, but I think the game really turned about 10 minutes into the second half when Luke Byrne got a goal for Roscommon. But I thought the quality of football, and I've seen the Masters play a couple of times. I thought the quality of football, Jack, was quite good. You know, John O'Connell had a fantastic game for Limerick. John O'Connell of Knockon. I thought John Doyle of St. Kieran's as well. But there were a lot of Ron McGee had a very good game up in the forwards. He got 3 or 4 points from Hospital Herberstown. But overall it was a very committed display against what I thought, Jack, was a pretty useful Roscommon team. No.
Yeah.
And I'd be hopeful going forward. I think going into the game on Saturday in Mitchelstown, and Anthony McCarthy's sole focus will be to get a bit of momentum now as they head into the knockout stages of the championship. They've already met Cork in a friendly in John O'Mahony Park in Kilkenny, and Limerick won that earlier in the year. Now, when you talk about Masters, you look out for players of note, and there's a perception out there that the Masters must be former county players. Couldn't be further from the truth, Jack. But
yeah.
I think 2 notable players that may be on the Cork panel for Saturday, aptly named James Masters and Nicholas Murphy. Nicholas Murphy from Carrigaline, a long-time midfielder for Cork Seniors. So they're likely to be in the opposition on Saturday. But first year in, getting organised, finding their feet, 2 wins out of 5. Into the knockout stages. Happy days, Jack, again. But if anything, you talk about home and away and all this sort of thing. It's their home form that has left them down on this occasion. They've lost 3 at home and won 2 away. So hopefully they'll make it 3-3 when they travel on Saturday. But
yeah, hopefully.
One way or the other, they're through to the knockout stages of the competition. So that was the first goal, and it has been achieved now. So we take it from there after that.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on how the team are progressing through the knockout stages, please God. But before we go, Matt, I know you don't like talking about All-Stars. I won't directly talk about All-Stars, but the hurling has come to an end inter-county wise. who was your hurler of the year?
– 15 of them, Jack.
Just 15. Are you ruling out the Gillane, so? Because you could go into the depths of the panel in that regard. But if there was maybe a couple that really stood out for you, or I can start.
Well, you know, if a man gets 110 in the cauldron, that was the Munster final this year, which Aaron Gillane did, you know, has to be a very, very strong contender. Donie Ryan said if there were more games for Keane Lynch to play in, very, very strong contender. Kyle Hayes, consistency, you know, absolutely excellent throughout. Definitely a contender. And you'd have to say, like, that the performance in the semi-final and the final, you know, Dermot Burns has to come into the reckoning. You know, he was the leading scorer in the All-Ireland final last Sunday, and I think he had one poor game. Was it against Tipperary? Poor. When I say a poor game now, Dermot, if you're listening, a poor game by your standards, but you must remember that on the particular day he suffered a very heavy knock early in the game, and it's a credit to the guy like that. He saw out the game, and I think Dermot would be in the mix. You know, like, you know, Jack, Barry Nash, totally consistent all year. Dan Morrissey, like, you could go on and go on. You know, it is.
You're not picking so. You never mentioned.
It's above my pay grade, Jack.
You never mentioned Nicky either. But I know you'll be thinking of him. For me, like, I was talking to one of the boys on Condon. He plays fullback with Skeeton, and he was kind of in the fullback union about Dan Morrissey, that maybe if he played with a different number on his back or slightly further field, his consistency at fullback all year. But for me, it's Aaron Gillane is the hurler of the year. Just as I said to Donie, when Limerick needed him most, Aaron was the man. 111 in the Munster final, 2-6 in the semi-final, 2 points from playoff. Hugh Lawler, who will definitely win an All-Star. So it's not bad clipping by Aaron. So I think it'll be staying at Patrick's Well, the hurler of the year award for the third time in a row and fourth time in 5 years, which is incredible, really. But as you said, there's 15 or 16 lads deserving of being mentioned in that category. But I think Aaron will take the top award this year. But for them, they won't care about individual awards. They're on the hunt for immortality, and they're 1 year away from that now, after completing the four in a row, as they bid to become the first team to win 5. But that's way down the line. We'll have a club championship to look forward to before that. But what a weekend it was. What a team we have on our hands, and we're so grateful that they're pulling on a green jersey every single week. So with 90 minutes on the clock, Matt.
Jack, before you go, I just want to give mention that on Sunday week at 1 o'clock in Mungret, there's a very, very interesting game. It's a charity game for Crumlin Hospital, organised by Alan Foley. It's the Legends against the All-Stars. It's at 1 o'clock. It was held again last year for the Dylan Quirk Foundation, and it was a very, very interesting day. Now it'll be an opportunity to run the rule over Limerick great hurlers of the past and the present, and that sort of a thing. And it kicks off at 1 o'clock. And I just unfortunately don't have my note here in front of me. It just seems to have gone off the screen. But there's a function later that evening for which the High Kings will be playing. And that gets underway, I think, around 8 o'clock. And the High Kings will be on stage at 9 o'clock. And there is what is called the golden ticket.
Okay.
Which I think is the Hotel Green Hills, as I said. But there is the golden ticket for €50, which will permit you to go to the function that night and to the match, and will also cover a shuttle transfer from the Green Hills to Mungret for the match. Look, it's for a very, very, very good cause, and if it's something that it would be an evening well spent. actually in the Mongrel grounds, and it would be for a very, very worthy cause. It was, by all accounts, I wasn't at it last year, but apparently it was a very, very enjoyable event. There's considerable enjoyment, content in the whole thing, and plus, it's, as I said, it's for Cumberland Children's Hospital, which is a very, very worthy cause.
Yeah, a great cause, a great initiative. So hopefully it'll get the support it garners. As I said, Matt, a brilliant pod as always. 90 minutes on the clock. We hope you all enjoyed listening. Thank you for all your contributions throughout the year. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube to like and subscribe to get that algorithm going. On Facebook, to like and share, on Twitter, like, retweet, and all those good things. Huge thank you to Noel's Menswear for getting involved in the podcast. To you, as always, Matt, to the Limerick Hurlers for delivering once more, to the ladies footballers who are in the All-Ireland final. Great weekend and many more good days to look forward to. But for now, it's over now from us. Thank you, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Jack. You get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 𝘔𝘰𝘦𝘯𝘴 leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.